The summer heat in West Texas had a way of warping reality. It rose from the canyon floors in visible waves, distorting the landscape into something alien and forbidding. August 1996 marked the third consecutive month of record-breaking temperatures across Palo Duro Canyon. The park rangers had grown accustomed to finding rattlesnakes seeking shelter in the cooler visitor centers, desperate to escape the punishing sun. What they weren't accustomed to finding was an abandoned Ford Econoline van with Nebraska plates, doors flung open, personal belongings scattered across the crimson soil, and 6 cousins ages 17 to 23 simply gone. "We have got another vehicle abandoned at Lighthouse Trail," Ranger Thomas Haywood reported over the crackling radio. His voice betrayed no particular concern. Tourists occasionally wandered off trail despite the warnings. "Looks like they left in a hurry, though. Kind of strange." This would be the understatement of the decade. The van belonged to Ethan Morrison, 23, the oldest of the 6 cousins who had embarked on what was supposed to be a 2-week road trip across the American Southwest. Along with Ethan were his cousins Jack Morrison, 22, Abigail Abbey Townsend, 21, Lucas Townsend, 19, Violet Morrison, 18, and Zachary Townsend, 17. 3 siblings from the Morrison family of Lincoln, Nebraska, and 3 from the Townsend family of nearby Omaha. The cousins had planned this trip for months. All 6 were close, unusually so for extended family members, having spent every summer together since childhood at their grandparents' lake house in Minnesota. This road trip was meant to be their last great adventure before life pulled them in different directions. Ethan was headed to graduate school that fall. Abby had just gotten engaged. Life was changing, as it inevitably does, but no one expected it to change like this. When Ranger Haywood approached the van that sweltering August afternoon, nothing immediately suggested foul play. The keys were still in the ignition. 6 backpacks were neatly arranged in the back. A detailed itinerary was taped to the dashboard, with Palo Duro Canyon circled in red marker and the words "Must See" Lighthouse Formation written beside it. But Ranger Haywood assumed they had gone hiking and would return before sundown. But something felt off. 6 half-empty water bottles sat in the cup holders. 6 cell phones, the bulky, limited models of 1996, were left behind, along with wallets containing driver's licenses, credit cards, and cash. No one planning a hike in 100-degree heat would leave without water. No one in 1996 would leave 6 cell phones behind simultaneously. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the canyon, Ranger Haywood called it in. By midnight, a search party had assembled. By dawn, the search had expanded to include law enforcement from 3 counties, helicopter sweeps, and trained dogs. They found nothing. Not a footprint. Not a scrap of clothing. Not a drop of blood. 6 young people had vanished into the vastness of Palo Duro Canyon without a trace. The investigation that followed was comprehensive, if ultimately fruitless. The Morrison and Townsend families arrived from Nebraska within 24 hours, shell-shocked and desperate for answers. They brought photographs, detailed descriptions, and an unshakable belief that their children would be found. FBI agent Raymond Foster, 38, was assigned as lead investigator. A veteran of missing persons cases, Foster had a reputation for thoroughness and empathy. He needed both for this case. "In 20 years with the Bureau, I have never seen anything like it," Foster would later confess in a rare interview. 6 people don't just vanish. They leave traces, evidence, witnesses, something. There's always something. Monsoon. But there wasn't. Not at first. The initial theory was straightforward. The cousins had gone hiking, gotten lost, and succumbed to the elements. It happened every year in national parks across the country. Heat stroke, dehydration, falls from heights. Nature could be merciless. But this theory fell apart under scrutiny. 6 experienced hikers wouldn't all make the same fatal mistakes simultaneously. And where were the bodies? The next theory was more sinister: kidnapping. But no ransom demands ever came. No witnesses reported seeing anyone unusual in the area. The van showed no signs of struggle or forced entry. The cousins' belongings, including nearly $800 in cash, remained untouched. Then came the conspiracy theories, spreading through the early internet like wildfire. Alien abduction, government experiments, a secret cult operating in the canyons, was a gateway to another dimension. The more outlandish the theory, the more traction it seemed to gain in the absence of concrete answers. Meanwhile, Agent Foster and his team methodically worked through the evidence. They traced the cousins' journey from Nebraska through Colorado and into Texas. Gas station surveillance footage, credit card receipts, and witness statements painted a picture of 6 young people enjoying the trip of a lifetime. At a diner in Amarillo, just hours before they disappeared, a waitress remembered them clearly. They were so happy, she told investigators, laughing, taking pictures, planning what they wanted to see at the canyon. The dark-haired girl that would be Violet, she kept saying she felt like something amazing was going to happen. Said she had this feeling they were going to discover something important. The waitress's statement sparked a new avenue of investigation. Had the cousins gone looking for something specific in the canyon? Their personal effects, now being carefully examined at FBI headquarters, yielded an interesting discovery: a dog-eared copy of Mysteries of the American Southwest. In Ethan Morrison's backpack, several pages were marked with post-it notes, including a chapter about Palo Duro Canyon. The chapter detailed local legends about the canyon, including stories from indigenous traditions about thin places where the boundary between worlds was permeable. Another section discussed the unexplained disappearance of a geological survey team in 1887. All 5 members had vanished while exploring a remote section of the canyon, their equipment left behind. The case was never solved. Had the Morrison and Townsend cousins gone looking for this thin place? Had they found it? Agent Foster wasn't prone to supernatural explanations, but he couldn't dismiss the possibility that the cousins had been searching for something specific, something that might have led them into danger. 4 months into the investigation, the first significant lead emerged. A hiker found a camera not belonging to the cousins containing photos of 6 young people matching their descriptions. The photos were taken on the day they disappeared, showing them near the lighthouse formation, the iconic natural structure that was their stated destination. The hiker, Gerald Watson, had found the camera wedged between rocks nearly 3 miles from where the van was discovered. The final photos on the roll were disturbing. They showed the cousins apparently running from something. The images were blurry, as if taken in haste. The last photo captured Violet looking back over her shoulder, her expression a mixture of terror and awe. Beyond that, the film was exposed to light, ruined. Whatever they had been running from, or toward, remained unrecorded. The camera belonged to Catherine Bryant, a tourist from Michigan who had been hiking that same day. When contacted by the FBI, Bryant confirmed she had lost her camera at the canyon, but didn't recall seeing the 6 cousins. More perplexingly, she insisted she hadn't taken any photos of people running. "I was photographing the rock formations, the flora. That's it." Analysis confirmed the photos hadn't been tampered with. Catherine Bryant had somehow photographed the 6 missing cousins in a moment of apparent panic, without any memory of doing so. The case grew colder as 1996 gave way to 1997. The families, once united in hope, began to fracture under the weight of their grief. Jack and Violet's parents divorced. Abby's fiancé eventually moved on. Zachary's mother took her own life on the 1-year anniversary of the disappearance, leaving behind a note that simply read, "I'm going to find my son." Agent Foster, though officially reassigned, never truly let go of the case. He returned to Palo Duro Canyon on his own time, walking the trails, interviewing rangers and locals, searching for anything that might have been overlooked. In 1999, 3 years after the disappearance, another piece of the puzzle emerged. Lucas Townsend's wristwatch, a distinctive vintage Omega that had belonged to his grandfather, was found by a 10-year-old boy exploring a shallow cave nearly 12 miles from the lighthouse formation. But straws. The watch was in perfect condition, the crystal unscratched, the band intact. The time had stopped at 3:47, and the date window showed August 17th, the day the cousins vanished. It looks like it was placed there yesterday, Agent Foster noted in his report. Not 3 years ago. There's not even dust on it. The cave where the watch was found became the focus of a renewed search effort. Ground-penetrating radar revealed something unusual. A network of tunnels extending deep beneath the canyon floor, some appearing to have been deliberately sealed with large stones. When the stones were removed, the search team discovered a narrow passage that seemed to descend vertically for at least 50 feet before taking a sharp turn. Due to safety concerns and a lack of proper equipment, the full exploration of the tunnel system was postponed. By the time a specialized team arrived 2 weeks later, a flash flood had filled the tunnel entrance with sediment, effectively resealing it. Attempts to excavate were hampered by unstable conditions and eventually abandoned. Throughout the early 2000s, the case of the missing cousins faded from public consciousness, that overshadowed by the national trauma of 9/11s and the wars that followed. The families continued their private searches, their private grief. Agent Foster retired from the FBI in 2008, but continued to work as a private investigator, with the Morrison-Townsend case always open on his desk. In 2010, 14 years after the disappearance, the case took an unexpected turn. A man named Daniel Pearson walked into the Amarillo field office claiming to have information about the missing cousins. Pearson, a geology graduate student, had been conducting research in Palo Duro Canyon when he discovered something unusual. A camera memory card half buried in sediment near the now collapsed tunnel entrance. The memory card, a technology that didn't exist in 1996, contained a single video file dated August 17, 2008, exactly 12 years after the disappearance. The footage showed a young woman who looked remarkably like an older version of Violet Morrison, speaking urgently into the camera. "If anyone finds this, my name is Violet Morrison. I disappeared with my brother, my sister, and my cousins in 1996. I don't know how to explain where we are or what happened to us. Time moves differently here. We have been trying to find a way back for what feels like months, but the tunnels keep changing. Jack thinks they are responding to our presence somehow. Ethan found symbols carved into the walls that match some ancient petroglyphs from this region, but they seem to be, I don't know, active, and they glow sometimes." Lucas says. The video cut off abruptly. Analysis confirmed it hadn't been doctored or digitally created. The woman in the footage shared 27 distinct facial feature points with photographs of Violet Morrison, well beyond the threshold for positive identification. Voice analysis yielded similar results. But how could a 20-year-old woman who disappeared in 1996 record a video on technology that didn't exist then, appearing to have aged only a few years? 12 years later? The mystery deepened when forensic examination of the memory card revealed trace elements not found in commercially manufactured electronics. The silicon structure contained unusual isotopes, and the plastic casing included compounds unknown to current materials science. By this point, the case had attracted attention from unexpected quarters. The Department of Energy expressed interest. NASA sent a geologist. Even the Pentagon requested copies of the findings. Official explanations cited geological anomalies and potential national security implications related to the tunnel system rather than the missing persons case itself. In 2015, nearly 2 decades after the disappearance, Agent Foster, now 65 and battling early-stage Parkinson's disease, received an envelope containing a Polaroid photograph. The photo showed all 6 cousins standing in front of what appeared to be the lighthouse formation, but something was wrong. The formation's distinctive shape was mirrored, as if the image had been flipped, and behind the cousins, barely visible in the background, was a figure that resembled no known animal or human. The photo was accompanied by a note written in what handwriting experts confirmed was Ethan Morrison's distinctive script. "We found the thin place. It found us too. They are not what we thought. Not gods. Not aliens. Something else. Something older. But they need us to translate. We are learning their language. But time works differently here. Don't worry about us. But whatever you do, don't remove the stones. Postmarked from Alpine, Texas, hundreds of miles from Palo Duro Canyon. The envelope had no return address. The Polaroid film used wasn't manufactured after 2008, yet showed no signs of degradation expected from a decade-old photograph. Foster, against his doctor's advice, traveled to Alpine. There, he discovered that the envelope had been left at a small post office by a young man with an old-fashioned haircut who paid for postage with coins dated 1996. Security camera footage showed someone resembling an older version of Jack Morrison, but the image quality was too poor for positive identification. The investigation stalled again. Foster's health declined rapidly, and he passed away in 2018 without finding the answers he sought for over 20 years. And at his funeral, attended by the still grieving Morrison and Townsend families, something unusual happened. A woman approached the gathering, handed Ethan's mother a sealed envelope, and disappeared before anyone could speak to her. The envelope contained 6 small, smooth stones of a mineral type not immediately identifiable, along with a note, "We are well. We are together. We are when we need to be." The doors open both ways, but not always to the same when. Keep these safe. They will know when to find you. The handwriting matched Abby Townsend's. The stones were analyzed by geologists at the University of Texas, listeners who determined they were composed primarily of quartz, but contained trace elements in configurations inconsistent with known geological processes. More significantly, carbon dating placed their formation at approximately 10,000 years in the future. As impossible as this seemed, it was just another impossibility in a case defined by them. In January 2023, 27 years after the disappearance, construction began on a new visitor center at Palo Duro Canyon State Park. During excavation, workers uncovered something extraordinary, a sealed chamber 20 feet beneath the surface, its walls covered in petroglyphs, unlike any previously documented in the region. The chamber contained 6 sleeping bags arranged in a circle. In the center lay a journal bound in leather that carbon dating would later determine came from a cow that had not yet been born. The journal was filled with entries written in alternating handwriting identified as belonging to all 6 missing cousins. The final entry, dated simply later, read, "We understand now. The thin places aren't doors to somewhere else. They are doors to someone else. The tunnels connect not just through space but through time. That's why the search parties never found us. We were here, but not when they were looking. We have learned to navigate them now, to choose when we emerge. The beings that found us aren't from another world. They are from another time. They have been trapped in the in-between, the neither when. They need our help to find their way back to their proper time, just as we needed theirs. We have agreed to help them. In exchange, they are teaching us how to move through the when ways. We can go anywhere, anywhen. We are going to see history unfold. We are going to witness the future. Don't worry about us. We will come back. Maybe we already have." The discovery prompted the largest archaeological operation in the park's history. The FBI, now led by Assistant Director Meredith Wilson, reopened the Morrison-Townsend case with a task force dedicated to understanding what had happened to the 6 cousins. And then, in the summer of 2025, 29 years after they vanished, the FBI found the evidence that would change everything we thought we knew about time, space, and the nature of reality itself. As excavation continued around the chamber, workers discovered a network of tunnels extending in all directions. Following one such tunnel, they found a metal door that seemed to have been installed recently. The door was locked from the inside. When they finally breached it, they found a room containing modern computer equipment, solar-powered batteries, and 6 beds that showed signs of recent use. On a desk sat 6 journals, 6 sets of identification with the cousins' names but older photos, others, and a detailed map of what appeared to be the tunnel system with annotations indicating not just where the tunnels led, but when. Most significantly, they found a digital storage device containing videos recorded by each of the cousins over what appeared to be decades, explaining exactly what had happened to them on that August day in 1996. The truth, as they told it, was more extraordinary than anyone had imagined. And the evidence they left behind would force us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the nature of time itself. But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. The digital storage device found in the underground room contained over 70 hours of video recordings. The oldest was dated September 2nd, 1996, 16 days after the cousin's disappearance. The most recent was time-stamped just 3 days before the FBI breach. Assistant Director Wilson established a secure viewing facility within the Bureau's headquarters, limiting access to a small team of trusted agents, 2 physicists from MIT, a linguist, and a psychologist. What they witnessed defied conventional understanding. In the first recording, all 6 cousins appeared, huddled together in what looked like a natural cave illuminated by flashlights. They appeared disheveled but unharmed. Ethan, the oldest, spoke directly to the camera. "This is going to sound insane, but we are recording this in case we don't make it back, or in case we get back but nobody believes what happened to us." He ran a hand through his hair, visibly struggling to organize his thoughts. "We have been gone for 16 days according to our watches, but we are pretty sure time is moving differently where we are. If anyone finds this, Mom, Dad, Uncle George, Aunt Diana, we are okay. We are together. We are trying to find our way back." Abby leaned into frame. "We were hiking to the lighthouse formation when Zach noticed something weird about one of the side canyons. And the shadows weren't falling right. The objects in the distance seemed closer than they should have been. We decided to check it out." "Bad decision," Lucas muttered from somewhere off camera. "We found a narrow crevice that wasn't on any of the park maps," Jack continued, his expression serious. "It was barely wide enough to squeeze through, but inside was this massive chamber with all these strange petroglyphs." Violet recognized some of the symbols from her archaeology class. Violet nodded. They were similar to Anasazi designs, but wrong somehow. More angular, more precise. And they seemed to, I know how this sounds, they seemed to move when you weren't looking directly at them. "We spent maybe an hour in the chamber, taking pictures, when the ground started shaking," Zachary said. "We thought it was an earthquake. We tried to get back to the crevice, but it had sealed itself somehow. That's when we noticed the tunnels. There were 6 of them," Ethan explained. "Each one seemed to pull at one of us specifically. Like it was calling us. We stuck together, though. Took the tunnel that was pulling at me. Walked for what felt like hours before emerging into this place." The camera panned around, showing more of the cave. Unusual crystalline formations grew from the walls and ceiling, emitting a faint bluish glow. The cousins had established a small camp with their backpacks, sleeping bags, and supplies they couldn't explain the origin of. "We don't know where we are exactly," Abby said, "or when. The stars are wrong. We can see the canyon outside, but it's different. The vegetation isn't the same. And we have seen things. Beings. They don't seem hostile, but they don't seem entirely present either. Like they are partially here and partially somewhere else." "Somewhere else," Violet corrected. "I think they exist across multiple points in time simultaneously. They have been trying to communicate with us through the symbols. I have been trying to decipher them." The first video ended there. The second, dated 3 days later, showed a significant change. The cousins had expanded their camp. They had more supplies, food, water, notebooks filled with sketches of symbols. Violet had constructed a crude translation key. "We have made contact," she explained excitedly. "They call themselves the Chronos. At least that's the closest approximation in our language. They exist in what they call the between, when a state of temporal flux. They have been trapped here for what could be millennia or minutes. Time doesn't work normally for them. From what we can understand." Ethan added, "They were once like us. Human, or at least humanoid. They were scientists conducting experiments on the nature of time itself. Something went wrong. They became untethered from normal temporal flow, existing in all times simultaneously, while being unable to fully exist in any single moment. They need our help," Jack said, "and we need theirs. They know how to navigate the tunnels, what they call when ways, but they can't physically manipulate objects in our reality. We can. Together, we might be able to open a stable pathway back to our time. The videos continued chronologically, documenting the cousins' extraordinary journey. They learned to navigate the tunnel system with the guidance of the Chronos entities. They discovered that different tunnels led to different time periods, both past and future, though all connected to Palo Duro Canyon in some way. In one recording from what they calculated to be 3 months after their disappearance, Lucas demonstrated their growing understanding of the Wen ways. The tunnels respond to intention and certain harmonic frequencies, he explained, running his hand along a crystalline formation that resonated with a deep, vibrating hum. If we focus on a specific time and use the right tonal combination, we can open a passage to that period. We have managed to reach points from roughly 15,000 BCEs to about 30,000 CE, though with varying degrees of precision. The problem, Zachary added, is that we can't seem to reach our exact time. We have gotten close within a decade or so, but something about the specific moment we left seems to be blocked. The Chronos don't understand why either. They say it's unprecedented. As the recordings progressed, the cousins' appearance began to change in subtle ways. Their clothing evolved, incorporating materials and designs they had acquired from different time periods. They aged, but not at a consistent rate. Sometimes they appeared older in earlier videos than in later ones. The time isn't linear here, Violet explained in a recording dated 2005. We experience it differently depending on which way we have recently traveled. We have been keeping journals to maintain our sense of personal chronology, but it's getting harder. I'm not sure how old I am anymore. Biologically. Maybe 25. But I have lived through at least 15 years of experiences. The cousins documented their explorations through different time periods. They witnessed the canyon's formation through geological forces. They observed indigenous peoples conducting ceremonies in the chamber with the petroglyphs. They saw the canyon in future centuries, altered by climate change, then restored by technology they couldn't comprehend. And through it all, they worked with the Chronos entities, learning their temporal science, helping them construct devices to stabilize the Wen ways. The recordings showed the cousins growing more knowledgeable, more confident in their navigation of the tunnel system. They spoke of time as a malleable medium, describing concepts that the MIT physicists viewing the footage claimed were centuries beyond current theoretical understanding. In a recording from 2010, the cousins revealed they had made their first attempt to contact the outside world. We left a memory card where we knew a researcher would find it, Jack explained. Violet recorded a message. We are hoping it might help establish a stable connection to our original time. We have also managed to send a letter to Agent Foster, Abby added. He's been looking for us all these years. We owe him something, even if it's just confirmation that we are alive. The Chronos warn that direct interaction with our original timeline could have unpredictable consequences, Ethan cautioned. Time wants to maintain its integrity. Push too hard in one place, and it compensates elsewhere. That's why we are being careful, making only minimal contact. As the videos continued into the 2010s, a new urgency entered the cousins' discussions. They had discovered something troubling about the Chronos and their intentions. They haven't been entirely truthful with us, Violet whispered in a recording where she appeared to be alone. I found earlier symbols, ones they didn't translate for us. They don't just want to stabilize the Wen ways. They want to collapse all time into a single point, a moment of perfect temporal unity. They believe this will free them from their between-when state. But it would effectively end linear time as we understand it. In subsequent recordings, the cousins debated what to do with this knowledge. They had grown close to the Chronos over what, for them, had been decades. They understood the entity's suffering, existing everywhere and nowhere, experiencing every moment of pain and joy simultaneously without the mercy of linear progression. But they couldn't allow the destruction of temporal reality. We have decided to work against them from within, Ethan announced in a 2018 recording. We are modifying their designs, introducing subtle flaws that will prevent the full collapse while still allowing them more stability. It's a compromise. They will gain the ability to exist more fully in chosen moments without destroying the linear flow completely. The risk, Lucas warned, is that they will discover what we are doing. They exist across time they might already know and are just waiting for the right moment to confront us. By 2020, the cousins had constructed the underground room where the FBI would eventually find their recordings. It served as their base of operations, a fixed point they could reliably return to across their temporal journeys. We have been experimenting with more direct interventions, Jack explained, leaving messages, artifacts, testing the boundaries of what we can change without causing temporal fractures. The most recent recordings revealed their final plan. After decades of experience navigating the When-ways, studying the Chronos technology, and mapping the possibilities, they had determined a way to potentially return to their original time without allowing the complete temporal collapse the Chronos desired. The chamber with the petroglyphs is a nexus point, Violet explained, pointing to complex diagrams spread across a table. And time flows differently there. It's what the Chronos used to initially untether themselves from linear progression. If we can reverse the process, create a kind of temporal anchor, we might be able to reinsert ourselves into our original timeline. The catch, Zachary said, is that we would have to synchronize perfectly. All 6 of us entering the chamber at exactly the same moment from 6 different When-ways, carrying 6 harmonic resonators tuned to our original temporal frequency. And we would need help from the outside, Abby added. Someone in our original time activating the 7th resonator in the chamber itself. Without that external anchor, we could end up anywhere, anywhen. The final recording, made just days before the FBI discovery, showed the cousins making their preparations. They had constructed the resonators, small devices incorporating the strange crystalline material from the cave walls. They had calculated the precise moment for their attempt, August 17, 2025, exactly 29 years after their disappearance, at 3:47 p.m., the time frozen on Lucas's watch. And if anyone finds this recording, Ethan said, looking directly into the camera, if you are watching this before August 17, 2025, there's still time to help us. The 7th resonator is hidden beneath the floor of the chamber, wrapped in lead to shield it from temporal detection. The Chronos don't know about it. Activated at exactly 3:47 p.m. on the anniversary of our disappearance, and we will have our chance to come home. We don't know what will happen if we succeed, Violet cautioned. Best case scenario, we return to our time, either at the moment we left or 29 years later. Worst case, temporal collapse. Reality as we know it might be fundamentally altered. But we have to try, Jack insisted. We have learned too much, seen too much. The Chronos technology could revolutionize human understanding if brought back safely. And we miss our families, Abby said softly. No matter how many wonders we have witnessed, that hasn't changed. The recording ended with all 6 cousins together, older now appearing to be in their 40s biologically, but still recognizable as the young people who had vanished into the canyon 29 years earlier. When Assistant Director Wilson finished reviewing the recordings, she faced an impossible decision. The deadline the cousins had mentioned, August 17, 2025, was just 3 days away. The physicist consultants were divided on the credibility of the cousins' claims. The evidence suggested they had indeed somehow traveled through time, but the consequences of activating the 7th resonator were unknown. If what they are describing is accurate, Dr. Eleanor Rees-Fromat explained, they are attempting to create a controlled temporal reintegration, but the variables are beyond our current understanding. We have no way to predict the outcome. On the other hand, her colleague Dr. Peter Nomura countered, the technology they have developed could advance our understanding of physics by centuries. The potential benefits are incalculable. Wilson made her decision. A small team would enter the chamber on August 17th, locate the 7th resonator, and activate it at the specified time. And they would proceed with extreme caution and be prepared to abort if anything seemed amiss. The day arrived with a sense of foreboding. The canyon, always imposing, seemed particularly ominous under a sky threatening thunderstorms. Wilson led the team personally, accompanied by the 2 physicists, 3 FBI agents and Raymond Foster's son, Michael, who had followed in his father's footsteps and joined the Bureau largely because of this case. They entered the chamber at noon, allowing ample time to locate the resonator. As the cousins had indicated, it was hidden beneath a loose stone in the floor, wrapped in lead shielding. The device was unlike anything the scientists had ever seen, a crystalline structure with metallic components arranged in patterns that seemed to shift subtly when viewed from their different angles. The engineering is incredible, Dr. Reese murmured as she examined it. These patterns appear to be quantum entanglement circuits, but constructed at a macroscopic scale, theoretically impossible with current technology. At 3:30 p.m., they made their final preparations. The resonator was positioned in the center of the chamber. The team retreated to the periphery, behind protective shields designed to their best ability based on the cousins' descriptions. At 3:45 p.m., the air in the chamber began to change. It grew heavy, charged with what felt like static electricity, and the petroglyphs on the walls began to emit a faint glow, pulsing in complex patterns. "They are activating," Dr. Nomura said, checking his instruments. "Quantum fluctuations are increasing exponentially. Whatever's happening, it's already begun." At 3:46 p.m., 6 distinct humming tones became audible, seeming to come from the walls themselves. They grew in intensity, harmonizing in ways that made the air vibrate visibly. At exactly 3:47 p.m., Dr. Reese activated the 7th resonator. What happened next was recorded by multiple cameras but defied coherent explanation. The center of the chamber appeared to fold inward, creating what Dr. Nomura would later describe as a localized temporal inversion. The air shimmered like heat waves, distorting light and sound. But the humming reached a crescendo that forced everyone to cover their ears. And then, impossibly, 6 figures stepped into existence from nowhere. Ethan, Jack, Abby, Lucas, Violet, and Zachary Morrison Townsend, exactly as they had appeared in their final recording, now standing in the chamber, each holding a device identical to the 7th resonator. For a moment, nobody moved. The cousins looked around, disoriented but focused. When they spotted Wilson and her team, expressions of relief washed over their faces. "It worked," Ethan said simply. "We are back." The reunion that followed was emotional but brief. The cousins warned that the temporal window was unstable, that they needed to leave the chamber immediately. As the group hurried toward the exit, strange distortions began to appear in the air around them, shadowy figures that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. "The Chronos," Violet whispered. "They know what we have done." They barely made it out before the entrance to the chamber sealed itself with a sound like thunder. The ground shook violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. When they reached the canyon rim and looked back, the entire section where the chamber had been located had collapsed in on itself, leaving nothing but rubble. And the debriefing process took months, and the cousins underwent extensive medical and psychological evaluations. Their story was corroborated by the video evidence they had left behind, by the impossible technology they had brought with them, and by their knowledge of events both past and future that they could not possibly have known. And for the Morrison and Townsend families, the return of their children, now older than their parents had been when they disappeared, was a miracle beyond comprehension. The media called it the most extraordinary homecoming in history. The scientists called it a paradigm shift in our understanding of physics. Philosophers called it a fundamental challenge to our conception of reality itself. The cousins themselves were more circumspect. They shared some of what they had learned, particularly regarding theoretical physics and temporal mechanics. But they withheld the specific details of the Chronos technology, citing the dangers of temporal manipulation without proper understanding. "Time isn't what we think it is," Ethan explained in his only public interview. "It's not a river flowing in one direction. It's more like an ocean with currents and eddies and depths we can't perceive from our limited perspective. We were lucky to find our way back. Others might not be." And the cousins readjusted to linear life with surprising ease, given their extraordinary experiences. They remained close, living within a few miles of each other in a small town in New Mexico. They rarely spoke publicly about their time in the Wenways, but occasionally shared stories with trusted researchers under strict conditions of confidentiality. One question remained unanswered: what happened to the Chronos? The cousins would only say that they had reached a compromise. The entities had gained greater stability in their temporal existence without achieving the complete collapse they had originally sought. Whether this meant they now existed primarily in the distant future, the ancient past, or somewhere in the between, when the cousins wouldn't say. They are where they need to be, was all Violet would offer. And when les ding band. The FBI officially closed the Morrison Townsend case in December 2025. The classified file, however, contained a troubling addendum. In the months following the cousins' return, unusual temporal anomalies were reported across the globe. Moments of déjà vu so powerful they left people disoriented for days. Brief glimpses of impossible scenes, futuristic cities, prehistoric landscapes witnessed by multiple observers simultaneously. Electronic devices recording fragments of broadcasts that had never been made or wouldn't be made for decades. Most concerning were the symbols that began appearing on walls, buildings, and natural formations worldwide, angular glyphs identical to those found in the chamber, glowing faintly in the darkness and seeming to shift when not directly observed. The cousins, when consulted about these phenomena, appeared unsurprised but deeply concerned. The Wenways were never meant to be static, Lucas explained to Assistant Director Wilson in a classified briefing. They are adaptive, responsive. By using them as extensively as we did, by altering their structure to facilitate our return, we may have expanded their reach. What does that mean for us? Wilson asked. For time itself. We don't know exactly, Ethan admitted. But the boundaries between moments may be growing thinner. The between when is bleeding into linear time in ways we didn't anticipate. Should we be worried? Wilson pressed. The six cousins exchanged glances, a silent communication honed through decades of shared experiences across countless wens. Not worried exactly, Violet finally answered, but aware. The Chronos have a saying, all moments exist simultaneously in potentia. What they mean is that past, present, and future are ultimately arbitrary distinctions. And from a higher dimensional perspective, everything that has happened is happening, or will happen, exists as a complete whole. That's not very reassuring, Wilson noted dryly. Then maybe this will help, Abby offered. In all our travels through the Wenways, across tens of thousands of years, we never once encountered a timeline in which humanity ceased to exist. We evolve, we change, we face challenges beyond imagination, but we endure. Besides, Jack added with a faint smile, if something truly catastrophic were going to happen, we would have seen evidence of it in the future whens we visited. The fact that we didn't suggest there are natural limits to how far the temporal boundaries can stretch before snapping back into alignment. Wilson wasn't entirely convinced, but she had no choice but to accept their assessment. The cousins, after all, were now the world's foremost experts on temporal mechanics, perhaps the only true experts who would exist for centuries to come. In a final, private conversation with Michael Foster, the son of the agent who had dedicated his life to finding them, Zachary offered a more personal perspective. Your father never gave up on us, he said quietly. In a way, his persistence created a kind of temporal anchor that helped guide us home. Ancient matters in the Wenways. Matters. Your father's will was extraordinarily powerful. He died never knowing what happened to you, Michael said, the old grief evident in his voice. That's not entirely true, Zachary replied. We visited him near the end, in his hospital room, during what his charts recorded as a 2-minute period when his vital signs inexplicably stabilized. Time stretched differently for us then. We had hours together. We told him everything. He died knowing we were safe, knowing we would find our way back. Whether this final revelation was true or merely a compassionate fiction, Michael Foster chose to believe it. Sometimes faith in the impossible is its own form of truth. As for the 6 cousins who vanished into Palo Duro Canyon in 1996 and returned 29 years later with knowledge beyond our comprehension, They continue their quiet lives in New Mexico, watching the sky for signs only they understand, listening for harmonics only they can hear, and keeping secrets that might reshape our understanding of reality itself if they were ever fully revealed. The mystery of what truly happened in those 29 years or centuries, or moments, depending on one's perspective, remains. But perhaps that's as it should be. Some truths exist beyond the boundaries of conventional understanding, in the spaces between moments, in the whispers of the when-ways, in the endless potential of time itself. And sometimes, just sometimes, they find their way back to us,